A game changer in shutting down illegal cannabis shops that are proliferating in New York City and threatening our communities. They have public health and public safety hazards. These illegal shops sell to kids. The cannabis they sell has been found to be adulterated. They prevent licensed sellers like this one here from opening legitimate businesses, and they rob the city of much needed tax revenue to pay for essential programs and services. Until now, measures at the state and local levels have targeted the actual businesses. My legislation targets the commercial landlords who knowingly rent to these illegal operations. The fines are steep and will send a message to landlords that will make them either begin eviction proceedings against current tenants or provide a chilling effect to keep them from renting to them at all. Our goal is to shut down these unlicensed cannabis and smoke shops. By the way, the bill also includes illegal smoke shops as well as illegal cannabis shops, and prevent their illegal activities from further hurting our neighborhoods. We are joined here today by my colleague, Councilmember Carlina Rivera, whose district we are in, former Councilmember Robert Cornegy, who is a senior advisor to one of the current legal cannabis shops, the Union Square Travel Agency right here, the one we're standing in front of, Commanding Officer of NYPD Patrol Borough South, Assistant Chief James McCarthy, and Steve Soutendijk, co-chair of the Retail Committee of the Real Estate Board of New York. I want to express my gratitude to my colleagues on the City Council, community advocates, and experts who work tirelessly to make this bill a reality. I also want to give a special shout out to Retail Worker Department Store Union 338, who represents the legal cannabis workers. Thank you. And with that, I want to introduce Councilmember Carlina Rivera.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Carlina Rivera. I'm the representative in the City Council for this district, this spot that we are standing in right now, home to the first recreational legal dispensaries for adult use. That includes this one and a number of others in the area, and there are more on the way. It is a process that has been a bit slow, but because of the historic nature of the path and the foundation that New York State has created, we're seeing more shops open up through the formal and legal process, and some of them will be delivery only. So we're all working together to ensure that we are supporting and protecting the legal market, and that's why this legislation by Councilmember Schulman is so important. So we stand here today because we have an obligation to protect a healthy, legal cannabis market and ensure that the industry meets its equity goals. As I mentioned, this is a historic moment for New York State, $150 million into a social equity fund, as well as a priority for those who have been disproportionately affected by the so-called war on drugs. We call them legacy operators, many of them jailed for an unbelievable amount of time for cannabis use. And now we are finally righting that wrong. So Union Square Travel Agency, and you're going to hear from them in a minute, is managed by the Doe Fund, which is an organization and not-for-profit that provides social services to all New Yorkers, especially our high-need New Yorkers. That's why this location is so important. Now, I have been inside for research purposes, of course, and I have to say it's beautifully laid out. It's a friendly environment, and people know what they're talking about. The whole point of the legal market and of the shops that we are seeing really in District 2, and I'm very proud to host them, you'll be able to trace that strain from the seed to the sale. That is very important, and we want to make sure that we know exactly what's going into our bodies. And so the illegal shops that are undermining the entire market are selling to people that are underage. They are using cartoony packages, and they're certainly being very in your face about it. In fact, last month, just a day after New York police and state tax agents raided an illegal shop in my district, they reopened for business at another location. So Councilmember Schulman's legislation will create a mechanism for holding landlords responsible who knowingly rent to unlicensed vendors. Unlicensed vendors undermine those who have invested in obtaining licenses and built an infrastructure that supports social good. So illegal shops, as you know, are incredibly problematic, and so we're working to ensure we're doing this the right way. I do have a bill to make a friendlier siren, two-tone siren, just to let you all know. It's on the way, stay tuned. It's all right, that's not the focus today. So I want to I really do look forward to continuing work with advocates and colleagues to protect and expand the legal market. Quiero decir alguna palabra en español, es bien importante a proteger la marqueta legal de cannabis. Este sitio, Union Square Travel Agency, es un sitio que es pareja de una organización que se llama el Dole Fund, que tiene servicios sociales. So, es bien importante que tenemos legislación, proyecto de ley de la concejal Schulman, que para los propietarios que rentan a gente que hacen cosas que son ilegal, tenemos cosas, vamos a castigar a esta gente. So it's very, very important that we have a framework in mind, we have regulations, and as was mentioned, the fines are steep. We're talking about $5,000, $10,000 at a time. So with that, I want to turn it over to the next person. As you can see, we have quite the coalition here. Do we get to bring up the council member? I just want to shout out Community Board 6, of course, the NYPD, and I think you're going to hear from my former colleague, former council member Robert Cornegy.
Yes, Councilman, wait, I'm going to let the siren go by. Okay. Now I want to ask former council member Robert Cornegy to come up. He's a special advisor to this legal cannabis shop here, and he'll have more to say about the legislation and what's going on here.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, Councilmember Schulman, Councilmember Rivera. Like was said, my name is Robert Cornegy. I am a special advisor to the Union Square Travel Agency. And from the beginning, the most important thing for us has been to make sure that we're providing safe products, and consumer safety has been an important part of what we do here. It was mentioned that we are partners with the Dole Fund, who runs and operates this particular facility. The Dole Fund has been around for 30 plus years, and it has worked directly with men who are formerly incarcerated, finding them housing and jobs. And the ability to have the revenue from here go straight into a stream that helps support their programs is incredibly important. But as you can imagine, having in close proximity to here so many illegal shops, it flies in the face of consumer safety, because we don't know what's in those products. Our products here are tested by the state and have been proven to be safe or for consumption. In the store here, we have over 250 products, everything from tinctures to lotions to actual flour. So consumers are given an opportunity with what I believe to be the best bud tenders in the business, who are trained and were trained 2 weeks prior to opening. We had paid training for our employees that we call bud tenders. So that kind of attention to detail is important for customers and for consumers. I want to thank Councilmember Schulman for thinking of businesses who were being stood up in our community to help support disproportionately negatively impacted communities from the war on drugs. So our demographic is one that needs to be supported. The programs that the Dole Fund runs and operates and has for over 30 years have impacted over 30,000 lives and put people back on track. So there are nonprofits, there are individuals who were given licenses through the state who went through a very rigorous process in order to do that. Those products are regulated and tested, so we know that they are consumer friendly. We've partnered here at Union Square with even agencies. So the public-private partnership, which I have believed forever is the way to sustainability, has happened here. We've partnered with ACS in order to provide lock boxes. We found that the recreational market, 600% had gone from young people being able to have access because of the recreational market. So we provided, in conjunction with ACS, lock boxes to make sure that in the home where recreational marijuana is allowed, is kept locked and safe, and we're allowed to do that. But this particular legislation, we believe, will help right the market. Right now, there are thousands of illegal shops that have a negative impact on the ability to generate revenue to funnel into those very programs that we mentioned. So again, these public-private partnerships, I want to thank men and women in city, state, and federal government. The state's idea of putting this project together is laudable. It is probably the most progressive in the country as it relates to disproportionately impacted individuals. So the city, state, and federal government is showing a commitment to these small businesses to make sure that they can be up and running and be sustainable. So I want to, again, thank you, Councilmember Schulman.
Thank you. And, you know, I will tell you that in putting this legislation together, I got numerous complaints from law enforcement that the laws that exist weren't enough. And so I worked with them, and I'm so proud to have them as a partner, because I'm now giving them another tool in their toolbox that they can use to shut down their businesses. So with that, I want to introduce Commanding Officer of NYPD Patrol Borough South, Assistant Chief James McCarthy.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I got to say it's very tough to follow the tallest and best dressed guy on the block. All right, so I wish I went before you. As Lynn said, I'm Assistant Chief Jim McCarthy. I'm the Borough Commander of Patrol Borough Manhattan South. Very important to note that the NYPD takes very seriously the enforcement of the illegal cannabis shops in New York City. My area, which consists of everything below 59th Street, has probably about 360 cannabis dispensaries. We work very closely with the New York State Police Sheriff's Office, as well as the Office of Cannabis Management, in targeting the illegal shops. Right now we've identified 44 shops which are ready to be nuisance abated, which is a civil action in closing these places. And through underage operations, undercover operations, and just out-and-out inspections going into all these locations to see that they're up to code. You know, we have been successful, and I really want to thank, Lynn and Carlina, and the rest of the City Council, for assisting in holding landlords accountable to renting to the right people, all right, the ones that are operating legal and not illegally. Thank you.
So, and I also want to stress, a couple of things. One is that these illegal shops are for the most part cash businesses, and that attracts criminal elements. There have been a lot of stabbings, shootings, robberies of these shops. In my district alone, in Richmond Hill, there was a stabbing not that long ago, a few months ago, in an illegal weed store. So this is something that's really important for us to work on. And I just want to mention one thing that the chief talked about, which is the nuisance abatement law. The nuisance abatement law is very difficult to shut these businesses down. But what my legislation does is it adds another piece of evidence to the nuisance abatement process so that they can shut these places down more quickly. And with that, I want to introduce Steve Soutendijk from the Real Estate Board of New York, because people would think, oh, well, you're going after commercial landlords, so they must be annoyed. They're not. Most of the commercial landlords in the city don't want these illegal shops. So with that, I'm going to ask him to come up.
Thank you, Councilman. Yeah. Good morning. My name's Steve Soutendijk. I'm chairman of REBNY's Retail Committee and a retail real estate broker in New York City for the last 20 years. I'm honored to be part of today's discussion. We've all seen that over the past year, many neighborhoods across New York City have seen these illegal smoke shops emerge. Vast majority are not licensed cannabis dispensaries, sell tobacco and hash products, along with other cannabis-related materials like pipes and rolling papers. These storefronts and mobile retailers have become hotspots for illegal drug sales and distribution. These storefronts have also impacted a community's streetscape or quality of life. REBNY commends Mayor Adams' efforts in recent months to step up enforcement. including through the organized raids and padlocking of businesses found to be illegally selling cannabis and other drugs. However, more needs to be done. REBNY and its members are pleased to stand with Council Members Schulman and Rivera and their colleagues to commend the passage of Intro 1001. The REBNY model retail lease explicitly states that space cannot be utilized illegally, and we strongly condemn any property owner who knowingly leases any property for an illegal or illicit use. And if a space is being utilized illegally and an owner is aware, it's appropriate. Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry. Good.
From the earlier paragraph.
No problem. We strongly condemn any property owner who knowingly leases any property for an illegal or illicit use. If a space is being utilized illegally and an owner is aware, it is appropriate for that owner to be penalized along with others who are knowingly involved in the arrangement. We know that as the legal cannabis market unfolds, more will need to be done to protect these legal retail businesses while ensuring the illegal black market becomes something of the past. REBNY and the retail brokerage community look forward to working with Council Members Schulman and Rivera and their colleagues on these efforts moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we're open to any questions that you have.
Question. I heard mention of landlord who knowingly leases to
So yeah.
So how do you hold accountable someone if their defense is, I didn't know?
So what happens is when the sheriff of the NYPD does a raid, a letter, this is how I found this out when we had a hearing about this last winter, the landlord gets a letter from the city saying you're renting to an entity that's conducting illegal business and we want you to evict them. So that's one. So that's number one. Number two, so that doesn't start then, so they actually get another chance. When there's a reinspection of that premises, they'll get another notice, and then after that, then they get fined.
2 strikes and you're out.
That's right.
Councilwoman, on that issue, how do you know, and for law enforcement, please fill in any blanks here, how do you know the letter is actually going to the landlord and it's not collecting dust in a P.O. box for an LLC owned by this and that? How do you make sure the landlord proper gets it?
Well, I mean, that's coming out of, it's not coming out of our office, but I'm sure.
The sheriff's office issues the letter, and so I presume that they have specifically the landlords who own that particular property.
And we will do follow-up.
They do follow up.
To identify the landlord and make sure he's aware of
The second question, I'm reading the legislation and there was a part of it that says the owner, if they have a license to sell something else. So are you able to then go after, say, if you have a license to be a grocery store or a deli, and then they're also selling illegal cannabis products, can you still go after them even though their license is specifically for a deli? As far as the landlord knows, they're renting to a deli?
Most definitely.
So, a few months ago, the mayor and the corporation council had a press conference uptown where they said that they were going to start enforcing this law against landlords, and they actually made 4 shops that were in this area, and to my knowledge, none of them have closed because of the continuing legal challenge. So at what point do you think that this law will be successful, given the fact that a lot of these landlords have gone to court to challenge the ability to do this?
So, yes, so when the mayor made that announcement, there weren't fines associated with it. So now what's going to happen is that the landlords are going to start getting fined unless they start. What will stop the fines from happening is if they can show that in good faith they're trying to evict the tenant. So if they go to court and there's evidence of that, they can do that. It's always a process, but this now has fines attached to it. So I think it's very different because one is a lot of these landlords, as REBNY talked about, they're not huge commercial landlords. They're smaller landlords. They're going to be either concerned about that or they're going to not rent to them in the first place, because who wants to start getting fined and then have to go to court and fight those and all of that?
The
So,
other question I have
yeah.
is, the law says that they can't knowingly rent
Right.
to a cannabis shop. What does knowingly mean?
Knowingly means what?
Because it could mean that they didn't know that they
No, knowingly means that when there's an inspection of the shop and it's found that there's an illegal business operating there, the notice is sent, I believe it's from the sheriff's office, to the landlord saying you are renting to an entity that's conducting illegal business. Then it's 2 strikes. And then when they go back to inspect again, they'll get another notification, and at that point, they'll start getting fined after that.
And if they don't do anything about it, they'll find again.
Yeah, it's 5, 10,000. Yeah, it keeps.
How much time does it go between each fine?
It has to do with the inspection. So if they're inspected and they get fined at that particular inspection, whatever point that is, when they come back again, and they're not going to come back the next day. They'll probably come back in a week or 2 or whatever. If stuff is still going, if an illegal business is still going on, they'll get then the fine will increase. Because the way to stop that is they can go to court and say, we started eviction proceedings.
Why do you think this is going to be effective?
I'm sorry?
Why do you think this will be effective in making the illegal shops?
Because the enforcement efforts up to now have targeted the businesses, and the businesses, some of them are fly-by-night. This is targeting landlords who actually have stake in the community or stake in their property, and they're not going to want to upset that.
So can you just go over again the team of the law? So the max fine is, and then what happens after?
The max fine is
The first
5
time,
and
I
10.
believe it's $5,000.
No, the first time is $5,000 and then $10,000 per inspection after that.
Correct.
So it's going to go up. Oh yeah.
Can they be shut
So-
down after that, or what happens after that?
Well,
Well,
we're going to submit them for nuisance abatement, and it's going to be a civil procedure to shut them down.
So there's 2 pieces to that. You're talking about the landlord and you're talking about the business. In the meantime, they can shut down the business, but the landlord has to make efforts to evict them.
How long does a nuisance abatement procedure take? Do you know?
It could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months. It's a tedious process.
Do you know roughly how many landlords citywide knowingly know there's legal shops? Roughly how many legal shops?
We know that there's 8,000 illegal smoke shops in the city, approximately, and 2,000 of those are illegal cannabis shops.
And you feel like all those landlords know?
It starts now. It just took, the law just took effect, so they will get, as soon as a business right now, anytime a business from now on gets inspected, a letter goes to the landlord, and then after that, another inspection, they get another letter, and then from there, they will be fined.
So, Inspector, how many of the 366 shops in your program will you be able to go after now that you have?
Well, I'm going to concentrate more on the illegal activity, going after them criminally and civilly, and just partnering lately with the office, the state office of cannabis management. They have a lot of power, and they can go in and just find you right on the spot, So I think this law is going to help a lot.
So, of the 366, how many do you think you could close down these?
Marcia, it's hard to give you a number. How many are acting in an illegal capacity, and that I don't really know.
What does infrastructure look like for this personnel, like extra police, extra resources?
Yeah, well, we work with everybody. We work with the local police, work with our narcotics division, who works with the sheriff's office, and so it's a joint effort by a lot of local law enforcement.
And the Department of Finance and Taxation as well.
It must be really frustrating for you because they spring up other places.
It is. That's a big problem. Right. That's very frustrating.
Are you concerned about the court order that is preventing additional regulated shops from opening?
That's separate from this, and so what this does is, regardless of what happens in that lawsuit, this is going to give an opportunity for those who want to open these legal shops to be able to do so.
Right. But you can enforce what you want. There's still going to be a huge demand for the product.
No, understood, but that's something on the state level too. So, but what I'm trying to do is get rid of I'll tell you right now, in my district alone, in Forest Hills, which is part of my district, there are several illegal weed shops. Once they're gone, there's just the opportunity is there for whatever goes on for that to become legal shops. Anybody else? It's already it's in effect now.
Starting today?
It actually started July 22nd, but we're announcing it today. Nobody really knew about it because there was a lot going on. There was the budget and everything else, and so we want to really bring it to light. I even had people in my community and other parts of the city ask me about it. So, what? The 23rd? Oh, July 23rd. I'm sorry. I was corrected by my colleague. It's fine.
All good, right?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you coming out.
Lit.